Okay, it's been 3 games since Anthony Davis has been back for the Lakers. The Lakers lost their first 2 games against the Mavs and they won last night against the Magic. So in today's video, I'm just going to cover some of the things that I'm seeing from this team. The 3 topics are going to be Anthony Davis, how he's looking, stuff like that. Number 2 is going to be the pick and roll defense. And number 3 is going to be the guard play, specifically Dennis Schroeder and KCP. But first of all, if you haven't subscribed yet, I'd appreciate it if you do. Otherwise, let's get into it. Topic number 1, AD is back.
Look at a Kyrie, I think you think Brooklyn. I think if you look at a Kemba Walker, I think you look at New York. I think if you look at a Jimmy Butler, I think he stays.
I don't want either one of them.
I understand that. I understand. If you look at Anthony Davis, it requires a trade.
Oh, we gonna get him.
I'm saying no, but
AD is on the way.
Right.
AD is on the way.
But that's what I'm talking about.
AD on the way. AD on the way. Now, the thing is, with AD being back, a lot of people are evaluating him based on his stats. I always thought that was foolish. I wasn't going to pay attention to his stats when he was back. I was looking for one thing and one thing only, which is mobility. Now, at the beginning of the season, AD looked heavy. He looked about 15, 20 pounds heavier than he's been historically, and that makes sense. He only had 71 days off. Obviously, it wasn't enough time for him to get back into basketball shape because he was still nursing some pretty serious injuries from the bubble. So he came in out of shape, he didn't play well, and then he got hurt. Even Draymond, in an interview, he didn't say AD was the one he was talking about, but Draymond in an interview basically said that there was a superstar in the league that was out of shape and he had never seen that superstar out of shape, and then a lot of internet detectives figured out that it was probably Anthony Davis. And Draymond wasn't wrong. So now with AD being back, what am I seeing? I'm seeing him look literally 10 to 15 pounds lighter than he did at the beginning of the season. Compare images and video clips of AD at the beginning of the season versus now. He looks a lot slimmer. He looks in way better shape. That's great. That's great for his movement. He still looks a step slow, but that's more reactionary. Like he's kind of getting used to the game speed again. But movement-wise, I thought he looked fantastic. I thought he's looked great in all 3 games. Even though he hasn't shot well against the Mavs, I still thought he moved around pretty well. Offensively, he was falling on the ground, getting up, no problem. He was sliding his feet. He was bouncing. Like, he doesn't look tentative at all, which is the key. That's kind of what I'm looking for. He doesn't look afraid to bang in terms of, like, taking some contact. He looks great. I mean, he looks about as in shape as he did on the New Orleans Pelicans. So that's been great. I mean, that's been fantastic. Now, some things that I want to talk about with AD in terms of shooting. A lot of people get upset when AD settles for jumpers, right? They get really upset about that. I'll see a lot of stuff on Twitter where people are like, why is he settling? Why is he settling? Are we forgetting the fact that Anthony Davis's jump shooting is what really raised the ceiling on this Lakers team? Because when he's hitting his jumper, he's basically a 7-foot shooting guard, which is excellent. And he spaces the floor, so now defensively you're getting all of his versatility, 1 through 5, all that shot blocking, the steals, the passing lanes, the disruption. But on offense, he's now spacing out for LeBron James. I mean, it's the best of both worlds. So you want AD shooting jumpers. The only way he's going to get good at shooting jumpers is to fucking shoot jumpers in the game. You can't expect him to get all of his buckets inside, right, against some of these shitty teams with no interior presence. And then round 2 against the Utah Jazz, it's a game 6, and now you expect Anthony Davis to go hit 4 or 5 threes in a playoff setting to pull Rudy Gobert out of the paint. That's not how it works. You got to build those habits up in the regular season. He's got to build his confidence up in the regular season. And right now he's starting from scratch again because he's been out for so long. So AD shooting jumpers is a really good thing. I want him to shoot more jumpers. If you've been following my old channel, and if you've been following me specifically, you know that I'm a huge proponent of shooting jumpers because I understand how important that is for the ceiling of the team. So I liked it when AD shot a fuck ton of jump shots against the Mavs, both games. I liked it last night when he shot against the Magic. Last night the jumpers were falling against the Magic. I want him to shoot more jumpers. I want him to shoot more 3-pointers, okay? I want those to become a bigger part of his game. The only issue I have is when he starts like hesitating with it. It's like, yo, just be decisive, all right? 1 dribble, pull up. When you're at the 3-point line, jab step, pull up. Just let it fly. Let that shit fly because you're good enough to shoot. Now, the biggest question we got to answer about Anthony Davis is, were his shooting numbers from the bubble last year an anomaly, or is that actually who he could be? Now, the facts would point to anomaly because historically he's never been a 38% three-point shooter. Last year he shot basically 38% from three in the bubble and damn near 50% from mid-range, which is just insane. Those are like Kevin Durant numbers. Historically, he hasn't been that type of shooter, but players get better. Guys get better at shooting throughout their careers. We're seeing way more guys become better shooters now because it's a bigger portion of what they focus on in the offseason. So a guy as skilled as Anthony Davis, as gifted as Anthony Davis, I'm not going to bet against him becoming a better jump shooter. But we have to see that happen in these playoffs. And for the Lakers to win the championship, he's going to have to hit that jump shot. He's going to have to hit that jump shot. So that's a big part. That's what I'm seeing. He looks good movement-wise. Still, missing some rotations, like getting the rust back. I'm not worried about that, and I'm not worried about him shooting a bunch of outside shots. That's what he needs to do. That's probably what the coaching staff is telling him to do. That's good. That's good. Okay, point number 2. Pick and roll defense. This is something I brought up in my previous video when the Lakers got blown out by the Jazz. I am concerned about the Lakers pick and roll defense, and a lot of it is because of the way it's structured, right? Like the Lakers are a big, like help and recover team, meaning they're never going to leave guys out on an island like that. They're not a big switch team right now, at least not in the regular season. They do switch a little bit more in the playoffs, but the pick and roll defensive scheme that they're running basically commits 2 to the ball at certain points, and then you're hoping that the guys in the back end, the other 3 guys, are rotating, communicating. So, I don't think their pick and roll defense looks sharp right now, which isn't surprising because they've had no continuity, 0 fucking continuity. So guys are all over the place. So it's not surprising. But my only concerns with the pick and roll defense is just, which guys are going to be locked in enough during the playoffs to warrant those minutes. And Laker Film Room, if you go on Laker Film Room's Twitter, he has an incredible thread after the second loss to the Mavs where he goes through I think it's 50 tweets or something, and he's just breaking down clips of the second half where pick and roll defense is just fucking atrocious, just so bad. Guys are just forgetting to switch when they're supposed to switch on the back end. Guys are getting lost. Guys aren't guarding space well enough. They're not getting low enough. It's just bad. It's just breakdowns all throughout. The 2 biggest culprits in my eyes were Ben McLemore and Talen Horton-Tucker. And I love THT, but if he can't figure out the pick and roll defense against some of the best pick and roll teams, he's not going to play that much in the playoffs. He's still a young player. You know how high I am on THT, THC, but he's going to be excellent. He's going to be a star someday. But right now, he's 20 years old. He doesn't really understand pick and roll defense as well as a veteran does. And Ben McLemore has never been a good defender. So those 2 guys were pretty big culprits in terms of all the breakdowns that are happening against the Mavs. And that's kind of my biggest concern is how are the Lakers going to figure out their pick and roll defense? I think a lot of the questions will be answered when LeBron James comes back, because now you're playing LeBron, AD, Caruso, KCP, Dennis, guys who are understanding their coverages better. You're probably playing less Trez, a little bit less Drummond against certain matchups. Mark will be a situational type of player. You're going to play more Wes Matthews if he's clicking with the rotation. So it'll be fine just by virtue of playing the guys who get it as opposed to playing all of their guys. So I understand that. But I am curious to see how they're going to adjust. And my bad, there's a fucking truck outside. I'm curious to see how they're going to adjust against some of the best pick and roll teams in the league because, the Utah Jazz, for instance, right? Their entire offense is based on a 7-footer sucking in attention because he's a major rim threat, lob threat. And then they got shooters on the outside. So they basically force you to collapse, but then they also stretch you out at the same time. So then until you just break. And they have 5-6 guys who can handle the ball off the pick and roll. So it's just nonstop pick and roll, pick and roll, pick and roll, kick, open three, or dunk. And what I'm seeing right now is with the way the Lakers are guarding the pick and roll, it is a little bit concerning because I feel like against the Jazz, they're just giving up those swing passes, those cross-court passes, and it's leading to a lot of open threes. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the Lakers switch a little bit more once the playoffs start. I'm sure Frank is saving a lot of that stuff. He's probably got all these different defensive adjustments and junk coverages that he can throw out. But that is something that I would be curious to see because right now the Lakers have no continuity and then that's probably the biggest issue. And their primary pick and roll scheme, I feel is a little bit vulnerable against the best pick and roll ball handlers in the league. I'm just not very comfortable trapping guys who really know how to operate out of the pick and roll because then it just leads to a 4-on-3. But Vogel's a defensive genius, so I'm sure he's putting counters on the backside. And as long as the Lakers are, crisp and they're sharp rotating, then they can help and recover enough where they can still play, shorthanded on defense once they give up the initial trap and still make up for it. So that's kind of what you're banking on. You're banking on guys like AD with the size and his length, LeBron with the size and his IQ, Drummond with the size to just make those cross-court passes a lot harder to throw. So I still think it will look solid in the playoffs, but that's probably my biggest concern is just pick and roll defense. I'm not worried about the outside shooting. I'm not worried about a lot of those things. I'm just worried about pick and roll defense because that's what it's going to be about in the playoffs. It's going to be about, can they execute enough on the defensive end? Are they going to have a shit ton of lapses that lead to open threes, or are they going to lock things down and at least force guys to shoot with the hand in their face? That's a big question. And I think that's a big if. And it's not because I question Vogel as a defensive coach because he's a genius, but it's more about continuity. Like, are the guys going to be on the same page enough to execute the coverages? I don't know the question to that. That's going to be a big question for us to answer. Number 3, it's going to be about the stellar guard play that's specifically coming from Dennis and KCP. If I pull up their fucking numbers for the month of April, it's been insane. They've gone bananas. Dennis is averaging close to 17 points a night. He's shooting 85% from the free throw line. He's only committing 2.7 turnovers a night, which is awesome. And he's shooting 40% from 3 on close to 4 attempts a night. I mean, that is exactly what I want from Dennis Schroeder. He looks like he's settled down a lot more. He's not recklessly driving into the paint at 6'1" and just attempting these crazy layups and just missing them and then crashing down to the floor really hard. He's way more patient. He's much more willing to let the jump shot fly. Once again, I like it when guys shoot jump shots. Not all the time, but I like it because jumpers are a big part of your game and they open the game up. And sometimes the open shot is the jump shot, so you got to take it, right? And only you taking that shot is going to make you comfortable with the shot. And what I'm seeing from Dennis is that he's much more willing to shoot that mid-range jumper when he's coming off the screen and it's wide open for him, as opposed to like passing it back out, trying to get something right at the rim. Like he's just being patient. He's taking what the defense is giving him. He's gonna get a lot of 3-pointers that like guys are sagging off, and he can just kind of rise up and shoot them. He's been really nice about shooting those when he needs to shoot those. He's shooting the mid-range a lot more, and as a result, look what's happening. He's playing with a lot more energy because he's not crashing to the ground all the time. He's not yelling at the refs all the time because he's driving into the hoop 10 times and then nothing's there. He's kicking it out, turning it over. Like he's not doing any of those things. He's just being patient. Like when the mid-range is there, he's taking it. When the lane is there, he's taking it. When the 3 is there, he's taking it. I like him playing this way. The Lakers should keep him at all costs. I've always been on this wagon, even if he frustrates me a lot. You still got to keep him, and he's playing excellent ball, and he's really looking like a guy who could be a 3rd star on this team right now, like with the way he's playing. He's playing like OKC Dennis, which is a guy who I felt like was really confident with his jumper, and I felt like earlier in the season he just wasn't confident in his jump shot, and he needs to be confident in his jump shot. Like there are a lot of elements that need to happen for the Lakers to win the championship, not because this team isn't talented enough to win the championship, but it's because the competition is so fucking good. Utah is fucking good, okay? The Clippers are fucking good. Phoenix, they're young, but they're fucking good. Denver's really good. Even with Jamal Murray hurt. The Nets are nasty. I'm not going to talk about Philly because Philly's not coming out of the East. So, look, there's a lot of competition. So, a lot of things need to go right for the Lakers to win the championship. But they can happen. Number 2 out of the guards is KCP. KCP has been a totally different human being. He is like one of the biggest boom-bust players around. Like, I'm looking at his splits, right? So let's look. January he averaged, December he was around 10 points a game, shot 52% from 3-point line. January he was 9 points a game, shot 46% from 3. Okay, so far so good. Oh my God, let's look at February. 8 points a night, 32% from 3. March, 7 points, 34% from 3. But now he's picked it back up. April, almost 15 points a night, 48% from 3. This is the KCP that we've come to expect, especially after his big playoff run. Ever since they got Ben McLemore, this guy has been playing with a greater sense of urgency. And the sense of urgency for KCP is on the offensive end. He's not passing up 3-pointers anymore. He is confident. He's coming into the gym, coming onto the court with the mindset of, I am the best shooter on this court. I have a lightning quick release. I have a pretty jump shot. I'm letting that shit fucking fly. As a result, what's happening? He's having like some huge fucking games from 3-point land. He was only 2 for 6 last night, but he was 4 for 9 from the field. Like, he's actually getting better at converting some of the stuff that he's getting inside. He had 29 against Dallas the other night, had 15 against Utah, like 25 against Utah the first time. I mean, dude, this guy is balling out right now. I'm really happy with the way that he's playing. Defensively, he's been playing really well. He just looks like he has a pep in his step. I think it took a little while for him to get his rhythm, get his legs underneath him. Maybe he was nursing some injuries that we didn't know about, but he's been playing great basketball. And now what, the guard play of KCP and Dennis does is it allows the Lakers to put out some spacing lineups if need be in the playoffs. So in the playoffs, if you're playing AD at the 5, you could put lineups out with LeBron, KCP, McLemore if he's hitting his rotations, Keith and AD, and that's like your best shooting lineup. You could replace Keith with Kuz, and you get a little bit more defense and still get some good shooting. You could replace McLemore with Caruso, or you could have Dennis in there. Like, they have a bunch of lineups they can throw out now where they can actually get extreme spacing if need be, but they could also get superior physicality. So overall, I'm optimistic about where things are going to go. I still feel pretty good about this team. I think like the key guys that need to play well are starting to play well, mainly Dennis and KCP. They're starting to play really well, and those guys are going to be like starters in the playoffs, so they have to be playing well. That's pretty much my main conclusion. These next few games are going to be so fucking key. They got to keep winning these games, man. They got to keep winning these games. You want to avoid the 6th spot at all costs. You don't want to be playing the fucking Clippers in round 1. You want to play the Denver Nuggets. That Denver series is going to still be a competitive series, I think, but you want to play Denver. You don't want to play the Clippers. You want to get a nice ramp up throughout the playoffs. That's how I feel about it. I do think the Suns in the second round would be a better matchup for the Lakers than the Jazz. I actually don't really want to play the Jazz. I think the Jazz are really good. But hey, right now it's just about racking up these wins, trying to stay that 5 spot in the standings, and then just hoping that when LeBron comes back, things kind of gel and this team kicks it into high gear. But if you guys enjoyed that video and you're not subscribed yet, subscribe, turn on the notifications. Otherwise, I will catch you later.
Man, they try to do me dirty. Heard it from a birdie. Told me that's the